I want to thank y'all for joining me for this first episode of Chapters of My Life. I spoke about a book in the last episode with Rakeem and how I want to do it vlog style, directly and clearly versus writing, because I don't really have a lot of time for that. But we're going to go through those chapters in between episodes with Rakeem and I'm excited for this first one. Um, we're going to dive in today, understanding and altruism. I think, those are some of the most important qualities that any person can have or any person can seek to find in the things that they're committed to or have responsibilities for. And understanding and altruism, at least both in practice and my attempt to live up to those words, are some of the most important things and one of the most defining purposes of my life and my internal constitution and soul. For me, I grew up. As I grew up, I had to learn the difference between curiosity and what I call understanding now at my age and where I'm at in my life. Um, Everybody isn't curious about new things and wanting to constantly learn or constantly know. So I don't want to make it seem like curiosity is empty, it's shallow. It's not. But what I had to understand, as I was being called Mr. What If in kindergarten by Miss Pace, and I'd ask questions even to her. Her and Coach Pace, Coach Kenny Pace, have an older son whose name is Brian, like my brother, and they'll never let me forget me walking up to Miss Debbie when I was a little kid and asking, "Well, when are y'all gonna have a Brendan?" And I was sitting there waiting for the answer. If I had a question, I was never bashful in asking. If there was something I wanted to know more about or wanted you to tell me more about, my curiosity would take hold. I would ask those questions. As I get older, and as I got older, it became clear the difference between a childlike curiosity and a mature, wise seeking of understanding. Curiosity is largely driven by what you want, what piques your interest, what you want to know more about, what you find interesting, maybe in the moment or after thinking. But understanding removes kind of you from the center of things and the purpose, the person, the other becomes the center of that understanding. If you want to understand a person, there's a lot of things you need to do. You need to gather context. You need to probe a little bit. You need to listen more. Understanding is a practice, but it's also an energy. It is it's something I look for very, very deeply. Do you come into situations when I first met you, or do you come into situations when you first start this job or this role, or do you come into situations as you're learning someone in a relationship with an open mind, seeking to understand, not to come in with an immediate judgment? Like I said, being probative, not interrogatory, not trying to, interrogate someone, but showing passion and showing the childlike curiosity after you've understood a little bit more about somebody. Understanding and an understanding spirit is so rare, and it makes sense that it's rare. As human beings, we don't have a ton of time to learn everyone deeply. But those with an understanding spirit, or a spirit that wants to understand people and their intricacies and the nuances of their life and what made them who they are and why they're interested in this and what they want in the future and why they want that in the future, and what place does this have in my life, and how does this person treat this this situation or this person? Why do they treat them that way? Trying to get and peel back the onion is so important to understanding. And the absence of understanding is also something that cemented its importance to me. In my life, everybody has not tried to understand why I won't like or do the things that I do. I've said many times before, oftentimes people tried to tell me or presuppose what I wanted or what I should do. And that stuck with me. Even the people you care about or who you know are looking out for your best interest, when they don't want to understand what you want, if they don't show understanding why you don't want to do this, it can be very hurtful. And so for me, understanding really, really enables the altruism that accompanies it in this chapter. Altruism is oftentimes a spirit, but because of a pledging KSI and particularly pledging at IT, altruism is deeply a part of our process and our chapter and our fraternity. The unselfish concern for the welfare of others. Let me repeat, the unselfish concern for the welfare of others, not the selfish concern. Not being concerned about somebody because if something happens to them or their situation, it's going to negatively affect me. But caring about and being concerned about somebody because of them first and foremost, or their situation first and foremost. And that's why it builds on understanding. Because that childlike curiosity and facts, which then you get older and you realize understanding is driven by ensuring that those you're dealing with or those you work with or the things you're committed to or have responsibilities for, you're trying to understand it as well. So this is a progression. And so it's very hard, in my opinion, to have an unselfish concern for someone else's welfare if you don't understand them. It might be possible, but I found it very hard. And in my life, the first, one of the most memorable displays of altruism and that unselfish concern for the welfare of others was with my mom. My mom worked at a daycare. She worked at the Department of Human Services, and she worked and kept 2 kids with disabilities who were our friends. Brian and I, Ron and JJ were our friends growing up. And they had limitations that, you know, whether it be having to be fed through a feeding tube or not being able to go to school or be able to move the way others move, that was their life. But how much they love my mom, the Haney family, in particular, JJ and Ryan, and especially Ryan, who couldn't speak, but I mean, I'll never forget being able to watch my mom and Ryan communicate without words for years. She knew when he was irritated, excited, when he had done something he wasn't supposed to do, like move her keys underneath the couch. All of those, you see that. And that was kind of the manifestation of her being willing to understand those who are different. And then with altruism, having an unselfish concern for their welfare. That was my example. I was 5, 6, 7. This was before 98. And being able to come over to their house And we were kids. We enjoyed the fact they had every game system, every game, every toy. But we became friends, and we didn't see the disabilities virtually at all. And I remember very distinctly feeling how fortunate I was to kind of learn what a friend, because we'd go over, we'd spend an hour and a half on weekdays, and seeing how happy JJ was every time we came in around 3:30 or 4. Judge Judy was always on. And we'd go and play until we had to go home. And I could tell for many years that was the highlight of his days and weeks. We care. We were taught to care. You're not better than anybody. There but for the grace of God go I. It's hugely important that was one of the first core characteristics that I learned without having to be really taught a direct lesson. I saw its importance. I saw how much of a difference it made. I saw how strong friendships were when that was the foundation. It's made me better at understanding who I need to spend my time with, who I need to be around. It's helped me better understand those who have pure motives and those who may have a penchant for selfishness, which we all do, but some people fight the selfishness. It's easy to be selfish when you don't understand somebody or you don't have any concern for their welfare. But that's not how I was raised. That's not how my family raised me. And to kind of bring it into a more modern context, those were, I just outlined understanding and appreciation at a time where I didn't really understand what those things were. I was just acting on it or learning it from my mom or my dad. But as you get older, as I mentioned, pledging, and Rakeem and I talked a little bit about it last week as it related to understanding. But altruism, man, when you're put in situations and you need and depend on people, when you don't know how you're going to drive yourself and make it through, when there's a fire inside of you that has a concern for those that you're spending time with or care about, and it's not driven by your own needs or your own selfish point of view or ambitions, and you really figure out or find people that you truly are concerned about them, what they need, and being able to deliver it. It's a reservoir of energy and it's a level of security that you can draw on that is second to none. It's second to none, man. And KSI helped me see that in its purest, most lasting form. And it's the bedrock of any relationship that I build at this point, and moving forward, is when you can take self out of things, they deplete you less, you're appreciated more, your perspective drives clarity, and as we'll get to in future episodes, it is the bedrock of trust. I'm currently binging Game of Thrones right now, and I think about the hand to the king or the queen. And I realized, whether it was intentional or not, the most effective were the people who counseled the king or queen purely. It didn't mean it always worked out, as anybody who's watched knows. Tyrion Tyrion Lannister probably had the worst season 7 there was because he was proposing bad decision after bad decision. Um, but people appreciate when you just give your honest perspective, driven by someone else's, what you believe is what's best for someone else. Not demanding you take my advice, but for the person who receiving it to know that whatever it is, whether it works out or not, it's coming from an altruistic place. And so I'll end with this in the most modern form. Back a couple years ago in July, when I did a multi-part sit down with my dad, the amount of people that reached out to me, number one, you should be ashamed of yourselves for only listening to episodes my dad is in. So I know who you are, and I make sure you watch. But one of the most heartfelt messages I had received was an appreciation that it enabled this person and others to better understand a coach, a guy, a teacher, a dad who they already respected. That there was context and nuance to why he was the way he was that became clearer based off of those sets of interviews. And what I would say is that's real understanding. You can respect what someone represents without understanding who they are. And one thing as a friend I always try to do is, going back to the beginning, I want our friendship to be based on my willingness to be understanding of you and the things and that you want and what you're willing to do to achieve them, or the position your family's in, or where you at in your life, all these different things. Understanding's that bedrock, not the old kindergarten childlike curiosity where I just want to be nosy and find out facts. You can create someone's persona in your head and that is most at risk of happening when you're not centering your understanding of another person or thing on them. That's when you walk into the trap of creating false realities in your head. And ultimately, over time, you will eventually learn whether that reality is true or false. Is it contrived or real? And so understanding is always coming because I understood my dad better and I live with him. I know him. I know him better than anybody. And when you sit down and level with people and seek to understand and ask the right questions and give them the floor and don't judge their responses and just be open and willing to listen, you can learn more about the people that you can learn more about people you already know better than anyone. And then from those stories, altruism, it gave context as to why there's an unselfish concern for the welfare of others. It's the same with my mom. That's how my grandmother was. That's how my grandmother's friends were. That's how Arkansas City was and is. If somebody it's community in its purest form. If someone needs something, you be there for them if you have it. Because I trust that if I need something in the future and you have it, you're going to help me. So I can be unselfish in my concern for your welfare today and always. Because we're built on understanding and communal concern. And so why my mom and my dad, my mom committed still to working with adults with disabilities all these years later. Or my dad, after 40 plus years of coaching, still learning, still concerned about his former players and current players and their future and anyone who's ever been taught by him. It's the combination of things. And so I did want to start this off with those understanding and with understanding and appreciation, because they're highly important. They're the bedrock of who I am. Uh, they're the source of much pride that I have in my soulful constitution, as I say. And so I challenge you to kind of think about understanding and altruism and what it means to you, and when did you kind of um, embody that, or understood its importance. I really want to give feedback. I've already received some on prior episodes, but these will be short and quick and to the point. I'm really anxious to hear you all's comments. So um, that's the understanding and appreciation chapter. I look forward to talking to Rakeem about it in our next episode. But until then, I look forward to hearing from you. There's more to come, and I'll see you soon.